My name is Susan Boyle.
What's the dream?
I'm trying to be a professional singer.
Susan Boyle's journey to fame was nothing short of extraordinary.
Most of the audience was laughing. But then when I opened my mouth, that seemed to change.
Her unforgettable audition on Britain's Got Talent defied all expectations, turning her from an underdog into a global sensation. With a voice that left audiences speechless, she built an incredible career, even winning America's Got Talent, the champions, and amassing a fortune of over $45 million. But have you heard what happened to Susan Boyle? Join us as we explore her story and uncover the truth behind her sudden retreat from fame. Life before fame. If there's one thing Susan Boyle's life proves, it's that appearances can be deceiving. She was born on April 1, 1961, in a busy household in West Lothian, Scotland. With 4 older brothers and 6 older sisters, space was tight, and life was far from luxurious. Her father, Patrick, worked as a miner and had a love for singing, while her mother, Bridget, spent long hours as a shorthand typist. Growing up in a council house, Susan's world was simple, but her dreams were anything but. From the very beginning, the odds were stacked against her. She was the youngest of 10, born when her mother was 47, a time when raising another child was far from easy. Complications during birth meant Susan was briefly deprived of oxygen, something doctors later blamed for her learning disabilities. That explanation shaped how she saw herself for years, but when she reached the peak of her career, she found out that her diagnosis had been wrong all along. School was nothing short of a battlefield. Keeping up with lessons was a constant struggle, and she wasn't given much patience or support. Instead, she found herself the target of relentless bullying, not just from classmates but from teachers too. In an interview, she described the frustration of falling behind in a system that didn't slow down for anyone. She recalled that she had been a slow learner, explaining that she was just a little slower at picking things up than others, which led to her feeling left behind in a system that constantly pushed forward. Unfortunately, the harsh words from her classmates weren't the worst of it. Teachers resorted to physical punishment, using a belt when she didn't meet expectations. Her peers weren't any kinder, giving her the cruel nickname Susie Simple and making school an unbearable place. The constant ridicule chipped away at her confidence, making learning feel less like an opportunity and more like a daily battle she had to endure. For Susan, music became more than just a passion. It was her escape. School had been a rough place, filled with rejection and cruelty, but music was where she felt at peace. She found comfort in singing in her parish church choir and threw herself into local talent competitions whenever she got the chance. Performing gave her a sense of belonging that she rarely felt anywhere else. Her mother, believing in her talent, constantly encouraged her to audition for Britain's Got Talent. But Susan wasn't convinced. She worried she was too old and brushed off the idea, content to admire the show from the sidelines when it debuted in 2004. Life, however, had other plans. After years of caring for her sick mother, Susan was left grieving when she passed away in 2007. That loss changed everything. A year later, she finally took the leap and auditioned, stepping onto a stage that would change her life forever. The Britain's Got Talent audition in Glasgow was a moment no one saw coming. Susan walked onto the stage, and from the moment she started singing I Dreamed a Dream, she turned every assumption on its head. The audience gasped, the judges were stunned, and by the time she hit the chorus, the entire room was on its feet. Amanda Holden later called it the biggest wake-up call ever. Proof that talent has nothing to do with appearance. Overnight, Susan became a sensation. Even Hollywood stars like Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher jumped on social media to show their support. That performance wasn't just about singing, it was about proving a point. The years of bullying, the doubts, the rejections, none of it mattered anymore. Susan had shown the world what she was capable of. And she wasn't done yet. Later, on her debut album, she included You'll See, a song that sent a clear message to anyone who had ever doubted her. She had made it, no matter what they had said. But while the world celebrated her stunning rise to fame, there was a part of Susan's story that remained hidden, one that had shaped her struggles long before she ever stepped onto that stage. Undiagnosed disorders. The moment Susan's audition hit the internet, everything changed. The video spread like wildfire, becoming the most viewed clip on YouTube at the time. Even though she didn't win Britain's Got Talent, finishing in second place, her journey was just beginning. Adjusting to life as an artist wasn't easy, especially with the exhaustion that followed such a sudden rise to fame. But Susan didn't back down. She hit the road with her fellow contestants, toured across the country, and poured her energy into making her first album. Her story resonated with millions, proving that success isn't bound by age. That debut album, I Dreamed a Dream, dropped in November 2009 and shattered expectations. It sold over 2 million copies in its first week, setting a record as the fastest-selling debut album by a female artist. But while the world saw an overnight sensation, Susan's road to success had been anything but smooth. In 2011, she opened up about a painful part of her past. Along with an undiagnosed learning disorder, she had also been living with epilepsy. The doctors had identified it correctly, but no one around her, neither her parents nor her teachers, knew how to handle it. Epilepsy isn't uncommon in the music world. Legends like Sir Elton John, Neil Young, and Lil Wayne have all dealt with the condition. But Susan's case was mishandled from the start. At school, seizures made her an easy target. Whenever she fainted in class, she'd wake up to her classmates gathered around, mocking her, laughing at her, making her feel like a spectacle. Home wasn't much better. Her parents, unsure of how to help, swung between being overly protective and leaving her to deal with it alone. When she sought extra support, her father dismissed her as touchy. Worse yet, people assumed her epilepsy was connected to her learning difficulties, so it went untreated. Without the right support, Susan struggled academically. By the time she left school, she had few qualifications and little idea of what to do next. She applied for jobs, but rarely got callbacks, and when she did, she never made it past the first interview. Eventually, she found work as a trainee cook at West Lothian College, but that only lasted 6 months. But even as she struggled to find her footing, she was about to go through a transformative journey where music would become her sanctuary. Going through the motions. Music had always been her escape. Performing at local venues gave her moments of joy, even when everything else in life felt uncertain. For years, that was the extent of her musical journey, until a heartbreaking loss changed everything. Family had always been complicated for Susan, but she held on to kindness and forgiveness. She never had much growing up, and didn't dwell on romance either. During her Britain's Got Talent run, she famously said, "Never been married, never been kissed." Her humility and strong sense of self shaped many of the choices she made in life. When her father passed away, her siblings slowly moved on, leaving their aging, frail mother behind in their 4-bedroom council house. But Susan stayed. Along with her 10-year-old cat, Pebbles, she remained by her mother's side, caring for her until the very end. Even after achieving worldwide fame and earning millions, Susan never left home. She still lives in that same house, embracing the simplicity she has always known. A neighbor recalled that after her mother, Bridget, passed away, Susan completely shut herself off, refusing to answer the door or the phone for days. Faith has always been a major part of Susan's life. A devoted Roman Catholic, she continues to sing in her church choir and volunteers by visiting elderly members of her congregation. Before fame, she described her life as predictable and uneventful, something she reflected on during a 2010 episode of The Oprah Winfrey Show. In 2012, she was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, something she publicly shared in a British Broadcasting Corporation interview the following year. Her struggle with epilepsy was also becoming harder to control, and despite being private about this part of her life, Susan kept a sharp sense of humor. When asked about online dating in November 2012, she joked that knowing her luck, she would go out on a date and end up with her limbs scattered around various Blackburn dustbins. She has always spoken candidly, whether about relationships or politics. In July 2013, she publicly supported the Better Together campaign, advocating for Scotland to remain part of the United Kingdom in the 2014 independence referendum. She stated that she was a proud, patriotic Scot who was passionate about her heritage and country, but did not consider herself a nationalist. She added that Scotland had retained its proud identity while remaining a part of Britain. No matter how much success she found, Susan stayed true to who she was, unapologetically herself. She has always lived a simple, disciplined life. She doesn't drink and has been managing type 2 diabetes since her diagnosis in June 2013. A year later, in November 2014, the media buzzed with reports that she was in a relationship with a man who was around her age. But she has consistently kept her relationship status out of the public eye and says that she feels it's unfair to her partner to put their matters out in the open. Her health took another hit in 2022 when she suffered a minor stroke. She kept the news private for some time before sharing it publicly in 2023, after making a surprise appearance on Britain's Got Talent. It was a powerful moment, as the stage that had once introduced her to the world was now the place where she revealed one of her most personal struggles. Looking back at her time on Britain's Got Talent, Susan's voice defied expectations. She didn't have the glamorous appearance or polished stage presence that audiences were used to, and for that, she was initially dismissed. But the moment she sang, everything changed. The shift from being overlooked to receiving a standing ovation was dramatic. And it wasn't just the judges who were blown away. Her audition clip took the internet by storm, racking up over 100 million views within a week. Even old performances, like her 1999 rendition of Cry Me a River, resurfaced and went viral. Her journey on the show wasn't without challenges. Fatigue and stress took their toll, but she pushed through, securing a strong finish in the competition. Though she placed second to the dance troupe Diversity, what she gained was far bigger than a trophy. Susan had proven something that resonated with millions. Dreams don't have an expiration date. Through every setback, music remained her refuge. But when tragedy struck close to home, it forced her to make a decision that would change everything. Dreams coming true. When Susan Boyle released her debut album, I Dreamed a Dream, in November 2009, the music industry wasn't prepared for the kind of impact she was about to make. The album sold massively and shattered all records. In its first week alone, it moved more than 2 million copies worldwide, instantly making it one of the fastest-selling debut albums by a female artist. In the UK, it flew off the shelves, breaking sales records and cementing Susan's place in history. Even before its official release, it was already making waves, becoming the highest-selling pre-order album on Amazon. But the numbers didn't stop there. By the end of the year, I Dreamed a Dream had become the biggest-selling album in the world, with over 9 million copies sold. Billboard News confirmed what was already clear. Susan Boyle wasn't just a reality TV star who got lucky. She was a powerhouse in her own right. The album's massive first-week sales set a new benchmark for debut female artists, a record that had been tracked by SoundScan since 1991. The success brought more than just financial gain. Susan's achievements were officially recognized in the Guinness World Records, where she secured multiple titles, including the fastest-selling debut album by a female artist and the highest first-week sales. She also made history as the oldest person to achieve such a milestone with a debut album in the United Kingdom. Her voice had captivated audiences worldwide, but in America, her story resonated in an even bigger way. Riding the wave of her newfound fame, Susan took her talents to America's Got Talent, where she was met with open arms. The days of being underestimated were long gone. She was no longer just the woman who had stunned the world with one audition. She was now an artist, fully stepping into the life she had once only dreamed about. Instead of watching the world pass her by, Susan embraced every moment. Following the record-breaking success of her debut, she wasted no time building her musical legacy. In 2010, she released The Gift, followed by Someone to Watch Over Me in 2011. Then, after a short break, she returned with a festive collection, Standing Ovation, The Greatest Songs from the Stage, in 2012. 2 years later, she continued her streak with Hope, before adding A Wonderful World to her discography in 2016. Susan had cemented her place in the industry, proving that her first album was no fluke. But as time went on, life started catching up with her. Years of hard work, health struggles, and the natural process of aging led her to step away from the spotlight. Fans assumed she had retired for good, but in 2019, she proved them wrong with the release of 10, a celebratory album marking a decade since her debut. Once again, she exceeded expectations, delivering a collection of songs that reflected her incredible journey. Despite her musical triumphs, there was an underlying sadness that even her most devoted fans couldn't ignore. Susan had changed, not just physically, but emotionally. The struggles she had faced, the health battles, and the weight of fame had taken their toll. While she still had so much to offer, she chose to retreat from the world of glitz and glamour, opting instead for a quieter, more private life. Reflecting on her work, Susan expressed deep gratitude for the journey she had experienced. She shared that creating the album had been an enjoyable process for her and that she truly hoped the public would appreciate it just as much as she had enjoyed making it. Her words carried a sense of closure, leaving uncertainty about whether she would ever return to the stage again. While she did not make any definitive statements about her future in music, her reflections suggested a sense of contentment with what she had already accomplished. She had achieved what most could only dream of, but behind the scenes, the pressures of fame were mounting, pushing her closer to a breaking point that no one saw coming. Buckling under pressure. Susan's rise to fame was meteoric, but with that success came an overwhelming pressure she wasn't prepared for. Britain's Got Talent had catapulted her into the spotlight, making her a household name almost overnight. But behind the scenes, the reality of her new life was far from glamorous. The rigorous training schedules, non-stop interviews, constant public scrutiny, and the never-ending demands of fame quickly took their toll. She had always loved to sing, but the industry's expectations were something else entirely. While many assumed she was enjoying every moment of her newfound success, Susan was struggling. The attention was relentless. Everywhere she went, she was met with flashing cameras, intrusive questions, and harsh criticism. Even though she had captured the hearts of millions, she hadn't actually won the show. That fact, combined with the exhaustion of 5 straight weeks of media attention, left her physically and emotionally drained. The pressure became too much, and shortly after the show's finale, Susan was hospitalized due to exhaustion. What followed was even more concerning. Rumors from backstage suggested that Susan had snapped under the stress. Reports claimed that she had thrown water at a staff member and shouted that she hated the show. Later that same night, things escalated further. The staff at her London home were so alarmed by her erratic behavior that they called the police. Within hours, Susan was admitted to a mental health care facility, and the headlines exploded. As the news of her breakdown spread, many began questioning whether the show's producers had prioritized ratings over contestants' well-being. It was later revealed that Britain's Got Talent had largely ignored signs of Susan's declining mental and physical health in the weeks leading up to the finale. The controversy even reached the UK's media regulator, Ofcom, which briefly considered launching an investigation into the show. However, the idea was ultimately dropped. Despite everything she had gone through, Susan wasn't ready to give up on her music. The experience had taught her to be more cautious with her workload, but balancing her health with the demands of her career wasn't easy. A packed touring schedule meant little time to rest, but she pushed through, delivering incredible performances for her fans. As she fought to balance her health and career, another revelation was waiting, one that would force her to rethink everything she had believed about herself since childhood. Learning the truth. By 2013, Susan Boyle had already faced her fair share of struggles, but that year brought a revelation that changed everything she thought she knew about herself. For most of her life, she had believed she suffered from brain damage caused by complications at birth. It was a label that had followed her since childhood, shaping how she saw herself and how others treated her. But after undergoing a proper evaluation, she finally got the truth. She wasn't brain damaged at all. The real diagnosis? Asperger's, a condition on the autism spectrum. Learning this caused a flood of emotions for her. On one hand, it was heartbreaking to realize she had spent decades believing something about herself that wasn't true. On the other, it was a relief. For the first time, things started making sense. Her struggles in school, her difficulties in social situations, the way she processed information differently. It wasn't because she was slow or incapable, but because her brain simply worked in its own unique way. With this new diagnosis, Susan was finally able to seek the right kind of support and treatment, something she had never had before. In an interview with The Guardian, she spoke candidly about the pain of growing up with a label that never truly fit her. She admitted that being called brain damaged had always felt cruel and unfair, as she had always known deep down that she was just like everyone else, even if she had her own way of doing things. She also expressed hope that sharing her story would help change perceptions of neurodivergent individuals, encouraging more understanding and support. She believed that people would treat her better once they gained a greater awareness of who she was and the reasons behind the way she navigated the world. Opening up about her diagnosis took courage, but it was met with an overwhelming wave of support. Fans and critics alike praised Susan for her honesty, a rare trait among celebrities who often choose to keep personal struggles private. She was finally being seen for who she truly was, and people appreciated her even more for it. However, that same year, she faced another personal challenge. She was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, forcing her to make major changes to her lifestyle. Among the hardest sacrifices, her love for chocolate, a simple pleasure she had to give up for the sake of her health. Adjusting to life with diabetes, while also navigating her autism diagnosis, wasn't easy, but Susan took it in stride, determined to take care of herself while continuing to do what she loved. Then, just as she was settling into these changes, the COVID-19 pandemic threw yet another obstacle in her path. With her health at risk, she had to take extra precautions, isolating herself for safety. For over 2.5 years, she stayed home, cutting off nearly all in-person interactions. The pandemic not only kept her away from the world, but also put a pause on her music career. Without the ability to collaborate in person or perform, she had to put her plans on hold, uncertain when or if she would be able to return to the stage. As Susan adjusted to a quieter life away from the spotlight, her sense of security, her family bonds, and her ability to find peace were about to be challenged. The Boyle family. Success didn't shield Susan Boyle from personal struggles. While she had the support of fans and a thriving music career, things at home were far from peaceful. In 2010, she used her hard-earned money to buy a house, hoping to enjoy the comfort and privacy she had never really had before. But that dream was short-lived. A group of troublemakers targeted her home, throwing rocks, trying to break in, and even setting fire-lit paper against her property. The harassment became unbearable, forcing her to make a difficult decision. Instead of staying in a place that no longer felt safe, Susan chose to leave, giving the house to her niece and returning to the familiarity of her childhood home. That period was already challenging, but things got even harder when her sister, Bridie, fell ill. Susan, who had always been close to Bridie, put everything on hold to be with her. When Bridie lost her battle with cancer at 73, the loss hit Susan deeply. She had always leaned on her sister, especially in the chaotic years following her rise to fame. Bridie had been a steady presence, someone who defended Susan when the media picked apart her appearance and who kept her grounded when the attention became overwhelming. Even through her most difficult moments, Bridie had been there, supporting her unconditionally. After her passing, Susan stepped in to take care of Bridie's daughter, carrying on her sister's love and responsibilities. But family complications didn't end there. With Susan's success came money, millions of pounds, and with that came conflict. Even among her own siblings, financial disputes arose. The biggest fallout came when Susan decided to help her brother, Jerry, by giving him £75,000 to keep his struggling business afloat. Instead of support, she was met with resistance from other family members who didn't agree with her decision. The situation spiraled when Susan claimed that Jerry had threatened to take his own life if she didn't give him the money. The accusation led to a public feud, with Jerry denying the claim and calling her a liar. For years, the tension between them remained unresolved. But in 2016, an unexpected event helped mend the broken relationship. Susan had a very public breakdown at Heathrow Airport, an emotional moment that, in some way, brought the siblings back together. Just as tensions within her family began to settle, a new battle emerged, one that would challenge her resilience in ways she had never faced before. Battling with her health. Susan Boyle's health struggles have continued in recent years, making it harder for her to stay as active in music as she once was. In May 2022, news surfaced that she had suffered a minor stroke. The effects of it made performing more difficult, and for a while, It seemed uncertain whether she would be able to return to the stage. However, in true Susan fashion, she refused to let it hold her back. She shared this deeply personal news after a heartfelt performance on Britain's Got Talent, where she sang alongside the West End cast of Les Miserables. The moment was particularly emotional for her, not just because of the significance of the song, but because standing on that stage again felt like a victory. Reflecting on the experience, she shared that in April of the previous year, she had suffered a minor stroke and initially thought the idea of returning to the stage would be impossible. However, she was proud of the fact that she had managed to overcome the challenge and make it back to perform. Later that evening, she took to Instagram to open up further, revealing that she had gone through extensive speech therapy just to be able to perform "I Dreamed a Dream" again. It had taken months of practice and determination, but she pulled it off. Even with ongoing health challenges, she remains committed to her music, performing when she feels up to it. While her career has slowed down, Susan has been open about some of the things she wishes had been different in her life. One of her biggest regrets, she admitted, is not having children. Despite that, she has kept her personal life mostly under wraps, leading to plenty of speculation about her relationships. One of the few details that has surfaced is that she has a long-time romantic connection with an American man, though his identity remains a mystery. Back in 2016, Susan briefly mentioned in an interview that she had been casually chatting with an American doctor, though she said they weren't serious at the time. Since then, reports have hinted that she's in a happy and stable relationship, but she has made it clear that she has no plans to reveal her partner's identity or walk down the aisle. The most anyone knows is that he occasionally joins her for special occasions, like her birthday, but beyond that, Susan keeps her love life private. Meanwhile, fans continue to hope for more music. Before her return to Britain's Got Talent, there had been a growing anticipation that she might be working on something new. And while she has yet to make any official announcements, one thing remains certain: Susan Boyle is a gift to music. And whenever she's ready, the world will be waiting. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.